The following is a conversation. It has the features of any conversation, such as imperfectly expressed thoughts, ill-considered opinions, and the notions of several sleep-deprived brains. Try not to get your stethoscope in a twist about it.
I'm really proud of you guys. Really proud of you guys.
I'm proud of you too, Dave.
Not only have you made it to the end of your first year of medical school, but not one of you has been convicted of 34 felony counts of business fraud. And I think,
Dave, you don't know that.
you deserve some recognition for it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard, but
You have no idea how hard it was to avoid 34 felony counts.
It is tempting sometimes to do fraud and crime.
yeah.
I think about doing fraud a lot.
People
I do.
leave packages at the entrance to our apartment, and I'm like, don't just leave that there. Because I'm not going to steal it, but you leaving it there makes me.
But you think about it.
And I don't.
It's
wanna
tempting.
Think like that.
And then you feel guilty in your head about thinking about it.
So pick up your darn chair.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Wow. People are leaving chairs down there?
Yeah, and a whole lamp and a couch. Please come get it before I do. No, I had a whole thought process in my head, like where would I hide this lamp if they came looking for it, if I stole it.
See, but this is the difference. I mean, this is the difference between, a convicted criminal and a real person. It's not that the real person doesn't think about it.
It's if you act on
It's the real person
fair.
doesn't do it.
Meandering in the margins of medicine, it's the Shortcoat Podcast.
Weird news,
Fresh views
helpful clues, and interviews.
by students for students.
Subscribe to our weekly show at theshortcoat.com.
Welcome back to the Shortcoat Podcast. It's the show that gives you an inside look at medical school from the students drinking from that fire hose. Happens to be a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. And I happen to be Dave Etler. With me today in the SCP studio, Rising M2, Fallon Jung.
Boop, 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 boop.
Rising M2, Taryn O'Brien joins us from the internet.
Hey, y'all.
And Rising M2, Gizzy Keeler joins us is in the studio.
Yeah, I don't have a cool jingle, but that's okay.
Well, now you know better next time.
I'll prepare.
Yeah. None cooler jingle for the intro than boop, 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 boop.
That was like the thing where the little Mario comes and he eats the little mushroom and then he goes boop and he gets bigger.
Oh, I didn't.
Obviously, it wasn't very.
I didn't play.
close.
No. I think you're dealing with a generational issue here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's fine.
That's what it is.
I don't know. I was thinking level up. Anyway.
Fair.
Okay.
I get you now.
And we're also joined today by the person towards whom they are all rising. Our
Yes.
M2 preclinical curriculum manager, Billie Ruden.
Hello.
Yes, go off, Queen.
It has been roughly something like 10 years since you've been on the podcast.
It has. Yes. 10 years. And we didn't even have this.
No, we had
set up. No, it was in the hallway.
We had a rolling cart with microphones on
Yeah.
it that we moved into, that seating area underneath the Java house.
Mm-hmm.
We did
It was all open space.
and she wasn't even a College of Medicine
No.
employee back then.
I wasn't.
She was a surgery coordinator.
Coordinator, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Big day.
Yeah.
It is a big day. I leveled up.
Yeah, this is really different
Boop,
and
boop,
fun.
boop. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I don't know. And now what is it actually? Because
I can't. It's like a little electronic, isn't it? Like da-na-na-na-na-na, something like that.
I don't know.
You know?
I always thought it was.
you can have your
I feel
you
like
look,
it's a combo between those two. It's like a melodic boop, boop, boop.
you can have your own level up sound, Fallon. You deserve that.
boop, 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 boop. I guess that's what we're going with.
Do you M2s, do you have any thoughts about what Billie needs to know about your class as she herds you through your last preclinical semester? Like, what would you warn her about?
Oh, that's a good
I
question.
feel like she was a facilitator for one of my small groups, so I feel like you already know too much about that gang.
I do have a little bit of insight.
You want to share any of those insights?
Yes. Your guys' reputation is that you are a very sweet class. Like, super nice. Just very happy class. That is the word on the street.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. I mean, that's been my perception as well
Yeah.
for the few M1s that
Everybody
have
is just
joined
like
us. Yeah.
connected and nice and interested and just very pleasant people.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Well, that's nice.
And every class has a theme.
Every class has a theme.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So your theme is nice.
I'm sure that maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. It's probably
No, we're not going to go there.
The other themes.
No.
Okay, that's fair.
Not all the themes are good themes.
Not all themes are good themes. That's okay.
We'll do that post record. Well, that's good. I'm glad that that's kind of the perception, because I feel like I was like, it could go one of two ways. You could either view us as like really nice or really needy. I feel like we always come to our curriculum managers and we're just like, you guys are like so nice and welcoming. You're our emotional support human.
Well, yeah, but that's our job. Like, yeah, that we expect you to do that.
But you're
and we
also
want to
good
do
at
that.
your job, which
Aw.
we greatly appreciate.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think I told you maybe, but like they have matched the curriculum coordinators to the semester very well.
Yes, and that was unintentional. We just kind of like fell into it. But yeah, Carrie is very much like the kindergarten teacher, and Sam is very much middle school, and I'm very much high school.
Nice. And then what happens after, like, when we get into clinicals? Is there like
A person?
Yeah. Do we have
Well, yeah, at a different degree though. You have your clerkship coordinator, and so there is like an administrator that's responsible for you, and then the clerkship director. But it's just you don't have the time to grow that relationship because you're only with them for like 2
Yeah,
weeks.
it changes every 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
So,
But you can always come back for a little.
Yes.
I know.
Just because you level up does not mean that my door isn't always open. So you guys still can come back. In fact, I have plenty of students that come back and we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe you just called us M2s. I just feel like
Hey, look.
funny about that.
Well, because every time I don't in the last couple of weeks, people will go, I'm kind of an M2 now.
Oh, really?
All right.
Really?
I have not once said that yet, but
Not until like June 30th.
Yeah. I say I'm an M1, soon to be an M2.
Yeah.
Yeah, officially, you're not an M2 until you get promoted on the email list, and then you start getting M2 emails.
Oh,
So
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we're just like,
it's all right.
are we M1s then?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
still M1s.
Oh, we okay.
Yeah, it doesn't disappear.
I wasn't sure if we were
Status
like in no
post
man's
M1.
land.
No.
Rising M2 means
Yeah.
that you're
Still an M1.
still an M1.
Weird.
Yeah,
You're not like a summer.
We belong to
med.
no one.
that's right.
No, I don't love that.
they love just coming up with labels for stuff here and acronyms.
Yeah. I mean, I like being labeled. It really helps me like just.
Know who you are. So other people teach you who you are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's our monthly healthcare policy and legislation update, and we'll look at things like Donald Trump's plans to restrict birth control access, what legislators are doing to make COVID-provoked telehealth expansions permanent, a very useful educational tool for understanding how health policy and politics work in the U.S. that I found this week that actually just launched, and a scandal at the NIH. Big scandal. But first, I want to remind you, Shortcoats, that we are always excited to offer advice about medical school, from getting into graduating, and to take suggestions for other topics we can bring you. This topic was suggested, and I decided to make it a sort of a monthly thing. So what do you want to hear? Go to theshortcoat.com/tell us to make this show your show, because sometimes I struggle to come up with things to talk about every single week. So it helps. It really helps. And you know, it gets to be what you want it to be. Former felon and President Donald Trump recently stated, former non-felon and President Donald Trump recently stated that he would not ban birth control if he were to return to the White House, but his potential policies might still make it more difficult for many to access contraception. This follows his administration's previous actions that limited access to birth control, especially for it turns out especially for the working class and poor, and aligns with current conservative plans to re-implement and expand those restrictions. This is from a Politico article. The Trump administration allowed more employers to opt out of birth control coverage and restricted the Title X family planning program, which led to a significant reduction in clinics and services. And there's a conservative Project 2025, which counts organizations like Turning Point USA and Liberty University as coalition partners and has a blueprint that includes plans to promote natural family planning methods and reduce insurance coverage for certain contraceptives, potentially complicating access. And, those actions and those proposed by, this Project 2025 might have a broader impact now, given that many states have banned nearly all abortions. I think it's no secret that we on this podcast typically, although I don't know Gizzy's views, but typically we skew a bit liberal. So we don't need to bash, conservative versus liberal, but, maybe we can talk a little bit about the impacts this will have on you guys in your futures.
Well, I guess I first wonder, is this a moot point now? Is it not a moot point now?
I don't think so.
Oh, you don't think it's a moot point?
You're talking about in light of a conviction.
Right.
No, I really don't think so.
I don't think so at all.
I mean, for some of us, I think we would like to believe that, but I have my doubts.
Okay.
Because there's an appeals process. There's a long road before this gets resolved, and it certainly won't be resolved before the 2024 election.
Okay, that's fair.
Not to mention, from childhood, I always thought impeachment meant you automatically were completely removed from office, but apparently not. It just means you were technically impeached. You can still sit in office. Just, you got a little slap on the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing that says a felon cannot run for office if fully convicted.
Well, some states have felon restrictions on felons' access to voting, but I haven't really researched that.
Have you ever, back when things were written, back in the day.
Back when things were written.
Did we have felons back then, or just like treasonists?
I don't know.
Point. They're only I think it's like 3 rules. Like, you gotta be 35. You have to be born here. I think that's if you check all those boxes, you're good to run. That's it, though. Nothing else dissuades you, because it's federal level and blah 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 blah. I'm not an expert, but
well, me neither.
I've read some stuff recently.
I would be
but he's gonna get sentenced July
11th is the sentencing date.
So then if he's sentenced to prison, but then he appeals, does he still go to prison?
Good question. I think that'll be up to the judge, because I think the prosecution could argue that he should be remanded immediately. The defense can argue that he should be free during the appeals process, and it's up to the judge as to whether or not those things can happen. And I think even if the judge decides yes, prison starts now, if indeed that is the sentencing recommendation, because prison is not required, it's up to 4 years, but for this crime, prison is not a requirement. So I'm not expecting anything to really significantly change.
Gotcha.
I think we still need to consider the effects on education and the effects on what students will be able to do, for instance, in residency, and won't be able to do in residency.
When I think of these things, I think of your guys' education and how that's going to affect you, depending on what residency you go into. I mean, it's already affecting our residency training here for OB.
Yeah, well, the AAMC has found that U.S. graduating students are less likely to apply for residency positions in states with abortion bans or significant restrictions, and not just OB-GYN residencies, for instance. The drop for OB-GYN residents is almost 6.7 in abortion ban states. So compared to states that don't restrict abortions. Internal medicine has dropped 5 times the applicants in abortion restricting states as in states where abortion isn't restricted. So it's having an effect. And these aren't huge, absolute numbers, but it's still a significant shift. And in an environment where there are already shortages of healthcare providers, it is significant.
Yeah. I guess more people will definitely have to be trained in delivering babies and maternal fetal health care and that kind of thing. I mean, if you think about Iowa, we're number 50, or somebody told me 51, but I was not aware that we had 51 states, unless we're including Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
But
we're not high up there on the...
No.
Wait, we should say exactly what we're not high up on.
Yeah. I think is it maternal fetal mortality?
Yeah.
Or is it the number of OBGYNs in the state?
I think both.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well,
last time I looked at it, maternal fetal mortality was pretty miserable, especially for Black mothers.
Yeah.
It was 6 times higher than the national rate, I think, and 3 times higher than that for white women, I think.
So wait, are you saying exactly that Iowa is the most dangerous state for a woman to have a baby then?
Pretty damn close if it's not actually that, yeah.
Yeah, I know that Iowa is higher on kind of like, it has higher maternal fetal mortality rates. And that kind of like correlates with, we have such a low number of practicing OB-GYNs, and especially in these rural areas. Because while yes, we do have some larger communities in Iowa, a lot of these areas where we're seeing mothers having like larger families, and this of course like isn't completely exclusive and everything, but we have lots of families having more children out in these rural areas that may not have as much prenatal care, that may not have much care leading up to the birth and then through the actual birth. And then if something does go wrong, you're battling with like an hour to a 2-hour commute to a center that you can have a surgery done to deliver that baby via cesarean, or to get a higher levels of maternal fetal care. And so it's definitely like a really big issue here. And kind of like my view on all of this is by legislating all these restrictions, especially in Iowa, because, well, yes, there's the possibility of like with this next election, our president making more federal restrictions. We're already seeing restrictions like these in the state of Iowa. Some of these bans and restrictions really limit our ability as healthcare providers to make the best recommendations and help our patients make the best care decisions for them. Because it might be the best option for some of these high-risk patients to be on a form of birth control long-term. But if we aren't able to do that due to state or federal legislations, we aren't able to provide appropriate level of care for these people.
And also, let's not forget that in states where there are restrictions, it can feel more difficult to make medical decisions that won't get you in trouble in an emergency. And we've seen that play out too. So it's quite the thing. Do you guys think it would? I know this is projecting a little bit into the future for you, but would the status of a state in this area be something that you would think about when looking for a residency?
I think it depends for me on what they teach you, right? Because I want to be able to know like how to perform an abortion if I needed to, right? Mm-hmm. Because like if not, then I'm just as dangerous as like, you know, some guy down the street, right? Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, I feel like by not training in places is one thing, but not practicing in places that have these restrictions is abandoning people who sounds like a lot of people already don't have a choice in what's going on. They already don't have the resources to like basically get around these restrictions. And so like what would I be doing if I left, you know?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Yeah. Like what, you know, I don't think anybody would argue that you have a responsibility to go practice in those states.
No,
but also those states need.
Right. That's why I went into medicine.
Yeah.
Because there are people that need help and can't access help. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah,
I think some states with restrictions are allying with neighboring states' residencies to provide that training. Yeah. Which, you know, that seems kind of awkward. That seems kind of a tough thing to have to do. I mean, for residents to have to travel to a whole nother state.
Yeah. That happens though quite a bit.
Does it?
Yeah. Huh. I mean, well, I guess if I'm thinking of community programs versus academic programs.
Oh, sure.
And so if you're at a community program and my mind goes to surgery because that's where I used to work, there's not going to be transplant surgery opportunities at a community program.
Sure.
So you would have to go to like an academic place. And before 2006, we used to send our residents to Memphis for 3 months for trauma.
Wow.
So they could get certain numbers for like gunshot wound kind of trauma.
Yeah, and it's still, I believe, a accreditation requirement.
Yes, to have these numbers,
to have these procedures available for you to learn on. Right. So,
like if you
it
want
gets
to deliver
tricky
babies.
though, is finding the institute to allow you to come, as long as you're not taking away the numbers from the trainees that they have.
Right. So they have to work harder to absorb. The neighboring states have to work harder to absorb those trainees that need to come to them. But
yeah,
and kind of like on a similar thread of like what Fallon said about, I feel like it's kind of like two differing perspectives, because Fallon, like you're wanting to go into more of a primary care area, and like my views on it would definitely be a little bit different if that's kind of what I had in mind. I see myself going into more of a surgical subspecialty at this point. And it definitely plays a role in, I want to make sure that I have access to all of the training that I would need to be able to serve my patients to the best of my ability. I just feel like since I'm not, and this like is slightly selfish, but it's also like depending on what stage I'm at in my life, like I would want to take like my own health scenario into account, because like certain medications that I need, I mean, we've seen that there's so often like not bringing healthcare providers into these legislative arenas can a lot of times result in an excess of legislation without considering kind of downstream effects, because there's no medication out there that doesn't have multi-use functions, I feel. And so depending on my health status, my significant other's health status, like if we had medications that there was a state where no matter how good the program was, where we had to be concerned about not being able to have access to that medication, like that would be a big consideration. I'm kind of like not trying to say one way or the other for sure. I will make my decision based on that, but I'm leaving it open in my mind as like a very real possibility, because
you got to think about it. You got to think about it. And if you have a family, as a resident, if you have a family, maybe you have, children with childbearing potential, none of us wants to think that our kid might have an obstetric emergency that needed to be handled. But if you, if you're thinking ahead sufficiently, you might go, I don't know if I, that's a
or if
scary
you're someone
proposition.
who wants to plan on not having a family, you want to still be able to have the means in place to ensure that you can make that decision for yourself.
Yeah. No, I think it's a personal decision that you can't really fault people for making based on what they value,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in both ways. I mean, I'm not going to, I think, for one person for whom personally these decisions are disappointing, there's another person out there who is just fine with it. And,
I mean, there's some of these laws also affect people. And as we saw what happened in, was it Alabama or Arkansas a couple months ago, a change that really would have affected IVF, and that's equally heartbreaking.
That was Alabama.
Affecting people's ability to take alternative routes to start a family. It's just, it doesn't affect just one side of the equation. There's always going to be other realms that it affects. And it's just really sad that that it's become such a heated trigger opposing side argument, because healthcare isn't one dimensional in any sense of it. We have to consider it from so many different perspectives.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll find out what happens. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hey, during the COVID pandemic, telehealth exploded in popularity because suddenly, despite the fact that this capability already existed, it's not like Zoom came out of nowhere, folks. We actually even had Zoom and didn't know about it. We figured out ways suddenly to do telehealth, and everybody was on board and going so far as to temporarily ease regulations that restricted the use of telehealth. And, it's an imperfect modality for physicians to communicate with patients, but sometimes, especially in places like Iowa, it's an important one. It can be an important one. Fortunately, Congress in the Telehealth Modernization Act of 2024 would remove those restrictions permanently from Medicare. So it was, a lot of the restrictions were temporarily, temporarily eased.
or east.
And now they're moving to make them permanent. So, for instance, there were restrictions on the use of telehealth, like it was only available to those in rural areas, and you still had to receive telehealth services at an approved site. And during COVID, that was eased. And now that will be made permanent. There were also restrictions on which providers could offer telehealth under Medicare, but now any provider who can bill Medicare can potentially provide telehealth services with approval. And there are changes being made to how they are covered and reimbursed. So they will be supposedly similarly reimbursed and covered as in-person services. And also the cost of providing telehealth will be considered reimbursable, which is crucial for maintaining and expanding telehealth services, particularly in underserved areas. Has any of us ever used telehealth?
I have.
Yeah. Did you like it? Did it serve its function for you?
Yeah. In some, so I used it mostly for therapy, and so like it worked for that purpose, because like it's not like our therapist was like, okay, open your mouth and say
Yeah. They weren't doing physical exams on you. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I think it served that purpose well. I still like in-person things better, but if like I think that it worked for the things that we needed, and if somebody were in a place where the only option for them was driving 2 hours, then I think that's great. I don't necessarily know how I feel about it being reimbursed the same as an in-person.
It says similarly. I don't know exactly what that means. Yeah.
I mostly just because like an in-person visit, I just don't think is the same as a telehealth visit, mostly because like if you need to do a physical exam, there's no way to do that. You know, you don't necessarily know who's in the background with the or like of that patient, so like privacy is a little bit tougher. Like so there are definitely some drawbacks, but I think overall it feels like a step in the right direction for me.
Do we teach about telehealth?
Fun fact.
Yeah.
CAPS 3, we have a patient interview.
On telehealth?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are we trying to teach about telehealth? Because I mean, anybody could push a button and start a Zoom call, for instance.
So the scenario, the patient interview is mental. It's you're learning how to incorporate the mental status exam with the patient through telehealth. Mm-hmm. So then we take out the physical exam option, because you don't have to worry about doing that with like a mental health interview. Yeah. Really, I think it's just to kind of like get students comfortable in a lot of different environments.
Familiarizing with the concepts.
And actually that's something that COVID gave us. We had to do it because of COVID, because of isolating our SPs, but now we realize like, wow, this was a really valuable experience. And so we've kept that one aspect in the different. You have several different interviews with SPs, but one of them is a telehealth.
It's kind of cool.
Seems like it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's funny because I think just yesterday, my fiance said, my insurance keeps emailing me and pushing telehealth. Mm. And so he had a very reserved, like, look on it. He was kind of, talking about, like, why is my insurance pushing me to do telehealth visits? And, kind of going on about, well, if my appendix is bursting, what are they going to do for me on telehealth? And yeah, so I kind of thought that was interesting because, I mean, he's the same age as us and he didn't really like it at all, but obviously it has its value.
I think though that, yeah, it is kind of valuable because like, let's say, okay, so you are having stomach ache. Okay. And so you decide to call telehealth. They can triage you a little bit better to realize like, is this an ER thing or is it not? And so then you're not oversaturating the ER because like that's a huge problem that we have is everybody, after 7 p.m. and urgent care is closed is heading to the ER. And sometimes it's not necessarily warranting for you to make an ER visit.
I can say that back in the day when I had young kids and didn't know what the hell I was doing, still not sure I know what the hell I'm doing, but
I know.
But sometimes they'd feel poorly or they'd hit their head on something, and it was nice to be able to call the nurse triage line and say, hey, do I need to worry about this or not?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, even if my gut told me it was fine, I still might be thinking like, should I do something or not? And so having that resource, I think the reason probably for pushing that is to keep costs down. And if currently they're not reimbursed at the same rate as in-person visits, that might be another, might be a less...
I think that's why he was distrustful.
Might be a less good reason, but...
If insurance is pushing something, usually we're like, I don't know about that.
Could be going on.
That's kind of like the one thing that, because I'm very pro telehealth, especially for like mental health related appointments for myself at least, because a lot of times that barrier for, oh my gosh, I have to schedule like an hour and a half to get myself to the office, to get through this appointment, to get back where I need to go. And even though it's like in reality it's not that big of a deal with like my mental health minutia, it makes it sometimes a really big barrier. Whereas if I'm like, oh, I can just get on telehealth and do this, it's much easier for me to like make sure I stay up to date on that. But then again, as with many things in healthcare, the dark side of that can be, okay, how is insurance going to manipulate that? And so I think with like continuing to have access and continuing these COVID era, like allowances for letting us continue telehealth, we need to really kind of have a plan for making sure that insurance companies don't exploit this in a negative way and turn it into a negative thing, because they have really beneficial uses. Like you were saying, Dave, people being able to call and be like, is this something that I need to, or that I should go to an ER for, or would this be something better suited to like an outpatient visit? Just kind of like addressing and triaging everything. But
well, I
with
think
everything
also
in life, no easy answer.
Yeah.
To think on the other side too, pretty soon you guys are going to be on the other side, and work-life balance and maybe telehealth options for you to be able to be the doctor on the other end might be also beneficial to you guys.
Yeah. I can, like, if I need to, I can take an appointment from like my house, but I wonder if it'll become one of those things where if telehealth becomes super normal, if people start expecting you to work from 9 to 7, or if somebody comes later, basically, like, are you on call all the time at your own home?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I think overall, hopefully it would be a positive.
I was thinking also just like access to, so if we think of the VA uses a lot of telehealth, especially with radiology, and there's going to be a lot of, part of the problem with the VA was getting access to veterans who live like 3-4 hours away from a VA medical center. So for the VA to be able to incorporate telehealth and being able to get their veterans treatment at home, or they are at a medical center, but they don't have enough radiologists to be able to do reads. I think it opens a door of opportunity, but I do think that it's also good to question how.
One way where I've like seen that actual in practice is like, for example, cardiology. A lot of times, cardiologists, that's a subspecialty, and a lot of these rural areas don't have. They're lucky if they have one cardiologist 2 counties away, and so people can go to their local medical center and have qualified health personnel to check their vitals, check their blood pressure and everything. And then while they're there, the patient can hop on telemedicine with their cardiologist, and the cardiologist has reliable like blood pressure readings, and like, okay, their patient, we did an EKG, here's the EKG, and they can make medication adjustments that way. So that's one way that I think they've been able to bridge that possible gap a little bit more, which is a benefit for sure. But obviously not everybody's going to be, especially like to this day, you'd tell me to identify a murmur or like specifically pick out an S3 or an S4, and I can't. So there might be a little bit of a limitation there, but for just general like lower criticality, like meds that aren't as critical, you can adjust those that way then.
I had a telehealth visit last year for the first time. I was traveling and I got COVID. And the guy, I just wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed. coincidentally, he looked like Zach Galifianakis, which may or
Oh, it's like my husband.
yes, may or may not have. I mean, I like Zach Galifianakis as an actor. I'm not sure I'd like him as a doctor.
He act like Zach Galifianakis?
No, I feel like Zach would have offered better medical advice. I don't know what kind of advice Zach would have offered.
Zoinks.
But yeah, I was traveling and I called UIC and they're like, well, we can't see you because we can't talk to you because you're out of the state.
So dumb.
And I was like, oh, come on. Like,
Oh, you could have just lied.
Yeah, I
Are they going
know.
to track down your IP address?
I don't lie. If I look,
Oh, Dave.
if I lie, I have guilt and fear.
Me too. I usually don't. I don't know why I like push everyone to break rules that I could never. But
You just like to live vicariously through people.
I do.
That's okay.
Like, I want to do this, but I want to see you do it so I can get a secondhand thrill.
Oh, Dave. I mean, yeah. I feel like I'm okay with breaking the rules if I feel like the rule is really stupid.
Okay.
And to me, that feels like a stupid rule.
I just feel like I'm going to get caught.
Have you been caught a lot?
No.
Well,
I don't know.
what are the
Sounds like you haven't.
repercussions? Is that insurance?
You don't
fraud,
know because you
typically?
haven't broken rules.
Because I haven't broken the rules. Okay, so I'll tell you a
One of
story.
34.
I'll tell you a story about this. So I park in the parking ramp across the street.
this guy.
Yeah. And one of the problems I was having with doing that is that I don't always drive the same car to work, and my access card to the parking ramp, there's only one.
Oh, yeah.
So I would frequently leave it in the other car, and I would get here and realize, well, shit, now I'm going to have to pay $20 to park for the day.
You just call the button. There's a button call that you can call.
Oh, boy.
I had no idea.
I've done that before. There's a
I've
button
never.
that you call, and then they look you up real quick, and then they let you.
No.
Yeah.
I did it before. And
Billy!
I called and I'm like, hey, I lost my...
life.
Billy!
You need to come on the podcast more often.
I guess.
Well, what I was thinking of doing was buying, and in fact, I did do this and never used it, was buying a card cloner.
Oh.
Oh, what's that?
And so, it's a little electric device that you can scan your card, your existing card with, and then duplicate it to another card.
Like the electronics?
Yeah.
So, like-
well, the whatever, these are programmable cards that you use to get
Yeah,
into the
I
thing.
know
So it
that
just
one.
reprograms the new card so it looks like the old card. And I didn't do it because I was like, guaranteed somehow there's something I don't know about how this system works, and I'm gonna get caught.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was as easy as pushing a button.
Well,
Yeah.
now you know.
I didn't do it. Parking and transportation office. I didn't do it.
But you do have a
What
card.
he's
I had a
You guys
thought,
should
like
go back
Gizzy.
and refunded.
I had a thought that I could do this. Could have just pushed the button.
And you went so far as to buy the card cloner?
I did.
And
Oh.
it's still at
Wait,
home.
you bought
No,
it,
it's
you
actually
didn't
here
use it?
in my office.
Whoa.
I don't. It's useless. I'm not going to do
Is
anything
that
with
what
it.
people use to steal credit cards with?
No, I don't think so.
Now you've bought that. You've paid for parking.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. Is what you're saying.
You've invested a lot of money. And
Yeah.
We could've just broke a rule.
Or you could have just pushed the button.
I could have just pushed the damn button that exists that I did that I'm probably already paying for with my parking fees.
Probably.
I'm so sorry, Dave.
I will say they get annoyed with me, like if I've done that in the past, like if I've had to take my husband's car or
Well,
something.
give me 2 cards then.
I know.
Shut
I
up.
know.
Too
I think
bad.
that's
So
fair.
sad. Let me park my car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parking. It's actually the dean. I was at a talk with the dean, and she had gone around and was asking about, like if you could change one thing. And she said that it was ridiculous that she's come to Iowa and the majority of the thing that everybody wants to change is paid parking, having to pay for your parking. And she thinks it's ridiculous.
I mean,
I think of like,
ridiculous.
it's so ridiculous. We pay a lot of money to park in that ramp a month, but $110 a month for staff. Like we have
And if you're a resident over at the hospital or a physician over at the hospital, you don't get to park at the hospital. You park at like Finkbine, like a bus ride away. You park if you're really unlucky, you park out at the storage lot.
Where's that?
And if you're on call, it gets really tricky because okay, so I know too much about parking. So like, okay, let's say, so right now the Department of Surgery does not have enough parking spots for all of their residents. Granted, like to be ACS accredited, to be a level 1 trauma center and to have all the call that you have to take, you have to be either on site or within 15 minutes. But it could take 15 minutes from where they park to like, so if they're parking on it, like even arena to get into the hospital at 2 a.m. So what they do is you can have like a night's placard. And so you can park in the ramps at night, but you have to be out by 7 a.m. And I'm sorry, if you are in the OR and it's emergency surgery that you took a patient in at 3 a.m., if you're not out by 7 a.m., then you get fined.
Fine.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. 6:50. We gotta close this up.
Yeah.
Quick, put that colon back in there. We gotta go.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's
even
mega
like
or
with
not.
my commuter pass, because I park out at Hampshire, and I mean, granted, like as a student, I was pleased to know that it wasn't a monthly parking fee. I think it was like $180 for the semester for me to park.
Ooh, that's a
my
bargain.
car out at Hampshire. But we have like an extra 2 weeks at the end of the semester. So the undergraduate side of the university finished 2 weeks before us. So then my parking pass was done. And I was looking, I'm like, oh, if it's only like maybe $70 for the summer, as much time as I spend on campus, like that would be cheaper than me parking in the ramp. And I looked at it. No, it's still another like $180 for me to get a summer pass that I was going to use for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think our weird schedule in comparison to the rest of the university sometimes puts you guys at a distance.
Yeah, the rec center too.
The rec center.
Yeah.
Oh, it was bad.
There's some drama.
There was
some drama.
Yes, but I don't.
Well, if you're
think
still
that
listening,
anything-
listeners, to the
Come to Iowa.
Iowa Parking Podcast.
Sorry.
we are this honestly though. It's the people, not the parking, or the weather, or the rec center.
If what we're complaining about is parking, that's probably good.
Speaking of healthcare policy, which is what I wrote, I found a really great resource that I want everybody to know about. Published actually only a couple of days ago at kff.org, which they're calling Health Policy 101. It's meant to be a primer or sort of a mini textbook on health policy with chapters on Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, insurance issues and regulations, women's health policy, social determinants of health, comparison of international health systems. Really good at giving a high-level explanation of all of the factors that influence health policy in this country. And I really wanted to tell people about it because, you know, that stuff is not necessarily stuff that you learn about before you come to medical school or even while you're in medical school. I think a medicine society class and our Mass 3 class does a lot of that stuff. But it's a good resource and I want everybody to know about it. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Cool.
kff.org/health-policy-101. Check it out. House Republicans have accused officials at the National Institutes of Health of attempting to hide public records related to the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. The investigation has uncovered actual emails suggesting that senior health officials, including former advisors to Dr. Fauci, had tried to evade federal records laws. So, you know, it's a little hard to tell how much things are being blown out of proportion at this early stage in this news cycle. But emails from these folks who, and I'm sure they're not everybody, suggest attempts to delete or mislead about emails to avoid Freedom of Information Act obligations. So if you don't know what the Freedom of Information Act is, it means that anyone, but oftentimes reporters, can submit a request to get records so that they can do their jobs of reporting on things. And apparently what they were doing is sort of trading emails on how to evade those requests from reporters. And even federal records keepers within the NIH may have helped colleagues evade those requirements.
It's not a good look.
Not really. Not really. You know, the experts warn that such actions, if true, severely damage public trust in government transparency. And I worry that this stuff sort of spills over onto, you know, the rest of y'all how people will perceive the information that you will one day be providing to patients. I mean, trust is very fragile, we've learned.
Yeah.
Trust in medicine is very fragile.
Well, one thing I'm like wondering right off the bat, like since this was related to the COVID pandemic, was it like, I mean, and that's kind of the hard thing with like people blowing the whistle on this, because immediately it's like, oh, this is concerning. But then thinking of it, I'm like, okay, well, what would be kind of exceptions to that rule? It's like initially we had very few cases. So was there protected health information they had to make sure they didn't distribute? I don't know. Like,
I don't think the controversy is over that sort of thing, because the emails that they cited were basically like, my FOIA coordinator says that if you do this, they can't get to, if you delete your emails, they can't get to those records and blah, 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 which
gotcha.
That's kind of hard to, I'm transfixed.
Not a good look, Chuck.
I'm transfixed by Billy's cube.
Oh,
jelly cube.
I kind of love this.
I'm a fidgeter, so I thought I should bring it. It's called a sugar dough.
Sugar? Does it have sugar in it?
I don't know, but it's like thicker than what like a typical stress ball.
Dave, can you get us toys?
But not the texture.
Yeah, I've thought about it.
I almost brought more fidget toys, but some of them are noisy, so I thought I shouldn't bring them down.
Kind of nice.
Stop.
Yeah, like the cube part of it.
I just want to touch it for a second, just so I know.
I will say that no concrete evidence has been found linking American scientists or health officials to the actual origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I don't know why that
we
needs.
don't know where that
has not. There has been no evidence that American scientists or health officials had any part in the actual origin of the COVID-19 virus, which I guess is important to say. I think we pretty much are not.
I'm just kind of like, okay, well, like if we found out, like, what would we do with that information? Like, would there be consequences? And I don't know. I just think when COVID
still run
comes
for
up
president
in general now, where everyone's like, ugh.
I know. I just feel like we need to hold ourselves to, like, I don't know, a high standard. Is that like so much to ask for?
Yes. Like, what were you thinking? What were these people? If this turns out to be true and not an overblown, controversy, what were they thinking that they thought they could do this? Just turn over the records.
Right.
It's not that. It's not that deep, you guys.
Right. And I mean, and if it is, like, that's something that you need to go to, like, a higher power about, that is allowed to redact things or whatever, however that works. I don't know. But, like, or HIPAAize it. I'm not sure. But, like,
because then this just directly feeds into, like, distrust of science and medical health professionals, which is already an uphill battle enough as it is right now.
Yeah. And there's, like, further polarization between political parties. I mean, like, it's just a mess at this point. I just feel like we should be like, screw political parties. We're not allowed to have them anymore. Like, goodbye government. You're just useless. I feel like I am drowning in a pile of
poo.
Yes. Cry, whiny babies.
Or poo.
That hate each other.
I just want to say poo on the podcast.
That's fair.
The babies.
Say it a few more times for us, Dave.
Yeah. Pooing, crying, whiny babies. I just can't stand it. It drives me bananas. And I feel like when people get into power, they feel like they have the ability to step outside of the law or step outside of the rules that they've already created. And I just feel like...
There's so many times that politics and government just leave me thinking, like, how hard is it to just not be a shitty person and not, like, and focus on, like, I don't know, maybe helping others instead of reaching your own personal agenda. It's just,
If this goes anywhere, I think it'll be interesting. I always enjoy, to the extent that one can enjoy something like this, finding out the motivations of people, some sort of explanation. And I don't always get that satisfaction, which is annoying. But I do have to wonder, like, what was the reason for this choice?
I guess. Just think about how disappointing.
Could there have been a valid reason for going, or, valid is a stretch, but at least was there a reason that had some sort of internal logic anyway that says, this is why I did this,
Yeah, it'd be sad to find out, like, it was just on a whim And
or
now it's all up in an up.
we don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, just something silly.
Because no doubt a FOIA request is probably annoying to deal with. It's pulling records and things like that is like, ugh.
But shouldn't an entity, like the Center of Disease and like
the National Institutes of Health,
yeah, shouldn't they have like staff like specific for that?
I would.
And if they don't, why not?
Unpaid interns, they're like everywhere.
They're gold.
I think we need an intern for the show.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Maybe you should grab like a media person from the undergrad campus.
We had an intern once.
And now we don't.
His name was Corey.
Was he Corey with a K or Corey with a C?
Corey with a C. He's a good guy. Anyway, Corey, if you're out there listening, he's a physician now.
Oh, is he?
Oh, wow.
So he's a med student intern? That's kind of fun.
He didn't go here. He went.
Oh.
He went somewhere else. His choice.
But
so he was undergrad intern and then went to medical school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you for clarifying. I was like, that is so strange. Okay.
Not an
we were really rolling over. Like, is this one remote things? Like,
well, that's our show. Gabby, Fallon, Taryn, Billy. Thanks for being a part of it with me.
I think
it's Gizzy.
It's Gizzy, yeah.
What did I say?
Oh, Gabby here.
Gabby. I wrote Gabby. Gizzy, Fallon, Taryn. No, I can't even get it right when I know the answer.
Different vowel.
It's okay. This is summer.
Close.
Summer day.
During summer I don't have to be right about anything. Gabby, Farron, Torag, Bully. Thanks for being a part of it. What is a toe rag?
I think it's like, is that the thing that you just like you use like a little towel in between your toes? So
you floss between your toe? Sure.
Bully.
What kind of absolute ass slap would I be if I didn't thank you, Shortcoats, for making this part of your week? You guys have to do the reads.
Oh.
I can't read that far.
Oh, this happens every time.
Well, it's so far.
Why are we all so blind in medical school?
My prescription changed so much.
I think that's further than 2020.
If you're new here and you like what you heard today, follow the show wherever fine podcasts are available, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. The show is made possible by a generous donation by Carver College of Medicine student government and ongoing support from the Writing and Humanities program. Our music is by Dr. Vox and Catmosphere. I'm Dave Eitler saying, don't let the bastards get you down. Talk to you in 1 week.
Was that frustrated, Dave?
Hi, Shortcoats. Look, life in medical education, life in America, life in the world is often difficult. And I often wish I could help. All I have is this podcast, but in my wildest dreams, you have the support you need to lead a life of your choosing. You deserve to be happy, healthy, and successful in whatever ways you define those words. So if you need support because you've experienced racism, discrimination, harassment, mental health crises, I want you to be able to get the help that you need. And so I'm going to put some links in the show notes to some resources that you can use. But the bottom line is that for what it's worth, I see you. I know you're out there. I wish I could do more. Maybe I can in ways that I don't understand yet or know about. But I see you, and I'm glad you're here, and other people are too. This Shortcode podcast is a proud member of the MedEd Media Network. Inspiration, information, and guidance on your journey to medical school and beyond at mededmedia.com.